everybody, and welcome back to the B1 podcast with Matt and Tommy. That's right, we are here to talk everything Mexico City Grand Prix edition, and I don't think anyone's ever seen myself and Tommy so ready, energetic, past 10:30 at night. Tommy, you should be in bed right now, but that's because we've had a decent Grand Prix to talk about. Usually we're complaining about the track, saying that the fans deserve better, but no, Mexico City delivered in 2024.
It did. We had a very, very decent Grand Prix. Controversy, overtakes, lots of things going on throughout the whole race. Normally Mexico, you get to the first turn, that run down towards turn one, and then we go, right, let's lock in 71 laps of nothing happening and waving at fans in the stadium section. But instead, really, really exciting race. Lots going on and lots to talk about as well.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, it wasn't a consistent banger throughout. We did have shades of old Mexico City Grand Prix races at times, but lots to talk about, definitely. Now, before we dive into everything, our UK tickets, our end of season live show tour has been announced, the middle of December. There'll be a link in the description in YouTube or wherever you're listening or watching. We'd love to see you there. It's going to be an end of season special. It's going to be different to anything you've ever seen before if you've been to a different P1 live show. It's going to be very exciting and we can't wait to see you there. Right, I'm going to start this time with my most memorable moment, Tommy, and it is Norris versus Verstappen. No surprise. That is the
Surely
big
not.
talking point coming into this podcast, and I think we need to sort of limber up here. I think we need to really sort of maybe do some stretching beforehand because this could get spicy, Tommy, and I don't want you to pull a calf muscle or something. So it is obviously around Norris versus Verstappen. Turn number 4, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was the first little incident, wasn't it, after the safety car? And then turn number 8. Let's start with turn number 4. I've watched a bit of analysis on it as well. I've watched it back. Verstappen obviously on the inside line, Norris attacking on the outside. Some people might be asking, why did Verstappen not get a penalty last week and did get a penalty this week? It's because it's a completely different situation. Max, sadly, was not the master of apexes today because Lando was exactly side by side with Max at the apex, and that means he's owed some room. Max did not give him any room, not even 1 millimetre, it felt like. And Lando went careering over the grass, didn't he? And the rest is history. Well, you'd say that, but then 4 turns later, something else happened. But firstly, Tommy, let's focus on turn 4. I think it was fair. Max did deserve a penalty because it was a different situation to Kota.
Yes. When I first watched it, I've seen many moments like that. I think it's a part of racing I really dislike, that you can essentially push another car off the track. It's basically become very common with Verstappen, but mainly Verstappen, but also other drivers as well, where you kind of run people out wide. We saw it a lot in Kota as well. We've seen it in previous races, times gone by before, and sometimes people get away with it. So I was surprised that when the 10-second penalty came in, that it was for that. I think it is a penalty. Do I think it's 10 seconds? Maybe not. But I was surprised it was for that because I actually thought it was for the second one when it first came in, which we'll get onto later because I have a lot stronger opinions about that one. But yeah, the first move, we've seen it a few times. Perez and Lawson did it later in the race, but I think Perez did at least give a tiny bit of room. But yeah, I think the penalty, I personally think it should have been a 5-second penalty. But it wasn't going to change much anyway, really, was it? So
your point on the sort of promoting good racing, that is certainly not what I wanted to see with Max and Lando. They were absolutely categorically side by side going into that corner, which means we should see them side by side for the next few corners, and it's great to watch. But that isn't what Max Verstappen does when he defends. Some drivers do. There are definitely drivers out there. Hamilton, for example, I would say is one where there's always just room given. And that's why we see great racing. And that's what I want to see as a Formula One fan, is continued great racing. I don't want it to end after one corner or two corners and then we're talking about penalties. That's boring for me, to be honest with you. The fact we keep going, next race, okay, who got a penalty? Was it deserving of a penalty?
Yeah,
I just want to see
off
racing.
track and all this kind of stuff. It's constantly like, oh, he's off track. Oh, they've pushed him wide. And like you say, we want to see people go side by side through multiple corners. That's what we're all here to see, and that's what racing should be. So in a way, I'm also glad that they kind of did give him a penalty, because I think it's also kind of a big stamp of authority from the stewards to basically be like, this needs to stop, because the sport is going to be rubbish if this is just allowed to happen.
Absolutely. So, of course, turn 4 being one of them. And then turn 8, this is where Tommy has a slightly stronger opinion. So everybody get ready. But for me, it was desperate from Max. It was a lunge. I think even Christian Horner called it a dive bomb. And I know that he was in PR mode. So you just know how desperate of a move that was from Max. Why he decided to do that, I don't know. There's plenty of reasons that, of course, we'll throw in there. One being it's Max Verstappen. Just
and 2,
categorically,
it's
just
Lando
full stop.
Norris.
2 being Lando Norris. Does Max just simply drive aggressively, too aggressively? Oh, well, give me a 5-second penalty. Oh, well, give me a 10-second penalty, as long as it hinders Lando Norris. He is absolutely targeting Lando, solo targeting him as, well, I just need to goal hang and stop Lando Norris. That's all I need to do. And that kind of also leaves me like a little bit of a sour taste in some ways, that that move, especially at turn 8, was done, because you want to, again, see racing, but we didn't. I think it cost Lando Norris the victory, that particular move from Max, because you look, he was only 4.7 seconds off the win in the end, was Lando, and think of how much he lost just with that battle and losing track position. So turn 8 was far too much for me. Much worse than turn 4, in my opinion. But look, the stewards, they deem it how they want to deem it.
I can't believe it was the same, to be honest. People that think I'm going to defend Max here, absolutely not. It was a ridiculous move. It was incredibly desperate. I think we'll get onto this later. I think he knows what he's doing with it in terms of his championship battle and the way he goes about his driving. But if you take the kind of don't hate the player, hate the game out of it, it's just incredibly unsporting and just ridiculous driving. And it's not the kind of racing I want to see. I don't want to see people, because he's never making that corner. We never see overtakes into that corner. It's never going to happen. And in a way, it's almost like a less bad version of just crashing your rival out the race, because he's basically gone in there to screw Lando. I think it's even worse than Brazil 2021, because then he was kind of defending from Hamilton, but this is just a desperate lunge. He was never making the corner in a million years, so it's a completely illegal overtake, and he's just basically making Lando have to take avoiding action to not crash into him. So yeah, it's just a ridiculous move, and was absolutely never on, and that one was 100% worthy of a 10-second penalty.
Question from P1 Patreon member Tony Soprano. Where's the consistency in penalties? How do we go from a 5-second penalty for everyone last week to bulk 10-second penalties this week? I will say that is was slightly surprising from my perspective. It did feel as though a 5-second penalty was the right call for the first one, and then 10. Do we go to then even talking about a drive-through? That depends how severe you see that second one. But it's very much the steward's discretion, right? They can give out a 5, a 10, a drive-through, and a stop and go, I think it is. And then obviously disqualification. So it goes up in tiers, doesn't it? Depending on how severe they think the move or the illegalness of it was.
Yeah, because what did Hamilton get for Silverstone 21? Was that
10.
a stop go?
10
second
stop
stop go. Yeah, yeah.
10 second stop go?
I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was, because I think that one they basically wanted to punish Hamilton as much as possible.
No, it was just a 10-second penalty. It wasn't a.
Are you sure? I'm pretty sure he had to stop. Oh, okay, interesting. I definitely thought it was more, but they can obviously, do those. We rarely see stop goes like we used to. That used to be the kind of norm. I'm kind of conflicted with it because for me, I don't want to see that kind of driving, and I think it should be punished a lot more. And then equally, you kind of look at it and go, well, sometimes we've seen 5-second penalties give out for nothing, and I think shouldn't, and you don't want them like interfering with racing. But here they needed to clamp down on it. I think it was mainly just a statement from the stewards to basically be like, look, Max, you cannot drive like this. There's taking the rules into your own hands of what's available, and then there's just being absolutely ridiculous, and that's what it was here. You know, in the last race, it's been discussed a million times, but I'm still of the opinion that was Max taking the rules into his own hands and being smart about it, and I don't think Lando should have been able to pass him off track. This one, 100% on Max, deserved a hefty penalty. So yeah, I can see why they did go for 10 seconds.
I think as well, it shows the fine line that Max Verstappen is kind of balancing on in some ways, where, yes, he got to the apex first in Kota, but however, had it not been that, and he would have been side by side with Lando just like we saw today, then he's getting not just a 5, but a 10 because he's lunging, and it is that desperation that perhaps the stewards don't like to see as well. I don't know if I agree with the fact that the stewards are trying to make a statement and things like that when the ruling hasn't changed and they haven't made something very much black and white. I don't like potentially the inconsistencies that Tony Soprano, the question that's been asked here, is suggesting, is that I don't think we can go from Grand Prix to Grand Prix and being like, today's the statement. All right, next week we're not making a statement, but that was not right, and we're going to do a 5-second. Like, it has to be consistent, and I feel as though it was slightly confusing for me, that 10-second penalty for sure. So, next question, P1 Patreon member, Average Indian Guy. Is Max's frustration showing up in his driving? He seems to overlook the long-term gain by losing one position for now instead of getting that aggressive.
I do not agree with that, because he's kind of, to say that it's overlooking the long-term gain by losing a position and just letting him kind of go.
I was just trying to decipher the question full stop. I didn't really understand it. So.
My understanding is that basically, like, Max should just let Lando go, and he doesn't understand the kind of risk versus reward of just letting a guy go past him versus essentially, having a crash or a collision. But I think in a weird way,
was secured, right?
Yeah. In a weird way, it's actually worked in his favor, because he, like you said, he stopped Lando winning the race, and that's exactly clearly what he was going to do, because you look at the points gap, and if Verstappen had just let Lando go past or not done that move, Verstappen is struggling. He might have, beaten the Mercs, finished 4th. Lando wins the race. It's a bigger points deficit. So it's calculated. Is it sporting? No. Is it Max Verstappen? Yes. And
have we seen it before in Formula One countless times with champions?
And Schumacher in particular. This is what Max does. You don't have to agree with it. I personally don't like it, even as a Max fan, because it's kind of I want to watch good racing at the end of the day. But it's him bending the rules to... And there's actually a very interesting quote from Lando after the US Grand Prix, which was something like, Max only cares about me now, if you like. And he's kind of proved that in this race, that him watching Carlos Sainz win, Charles Leclerc win each week is actually brilliant for him, because it shows how nervous he is about Lando and that championship threat. Still not coming down a lot, but the gap is closer. He's gained a lot. Still a lot of points available. And it shows that Max is worried about it, because he is willing to basically just race Lando. And he's not worried. I don't think he's worried about wins anymore or anything like that. It's all about the championship. And if Lando doesn't come through, or Lando's racing him, he will do everything to, one, stop Lando passing him. And you have to say again, it's not even though Lando has come out the winner because he's gained points, I was watching it again going like, Lando really needs to just get past Max in a race, because we go into another race where it hasn't happened, where Lando just hasn't passed Max. And of course Max is driving very extreme this time, far too much. But yeah, it's another moment where Max knows he can get in Lando's head and just drive this way to put him off.
I would argue in Lando's defence this time that the move was done on Max. Had Max not shoved him off the track, like he was going around the outside, would have had the inside for the next corner. Lando's coming out the victor in that battle. And then I'm sure Lando's seeing Max getting penalised as well. There's going to be a mental edge there that I think Lando's gained from this weekend for sure. And I think it showed as well in the post-race sort of, cool down room and all of that. He seemed almost happy, which was a slightly bizarre emotion, because I think I would have been absolutely fuming had I seen
what had happened. Zach Brown wasn't.
No, Zach wasn't
he was
too
not happy.
But yeah, it's plenty of chatter around this for sure, and it will continue to rage on. But we've got Brazil next weekend, so I'm sure that'll be a calm and composed race as well. Next question, Josh Waldock. Championship back on. Every time. Hits every single time. Was 47 points, and some people think it's a completely, dead in the water narrative. Lando's never catching Max. What I would say to those people is that I don't feel like they've watched F1 particularly long if they think that the championship's done with 4 races to go and 2 sprints. Hamilton had his engine blow up in Malaysia, and Nico Rosberg won the championship when we all thought Hamilton was going to secure that. There are moments that can turn a Formula One championship on its head, and I'm not just saying that because we have a Formula One podcast. That is not many points for 4 races left. And as we've seen today, like Verstappen finishing 6th, these things can happen. Now it can swing in the other way, and it could be championship off after Brazil. But I do genuinely think still there is a chance, and I won't hear or accept anything else.
The thing why I think it is on is, one, Max does drive extremely aggressive, but I don't think Max would be this desperate with his driving if it wasn't on. There's a big gap, but he's driving. The way he was driving then was like he was driving against Lewis Hamilton in 2021. So he's clearly worried about it. The McLaren again looked incredibly quick. Could have even won the race had he led at the start or something. But there is a lot of points left, and I think Red Bull, even when Max got into the lead, which feels like a lifetime ago now, to think that Max actually led into turn 1 and was leading, and we were going, is this going to be a Max Verstappen boring race where he just wins? They did not have the pace at all. Nowhere near the pace of the McLarens and the Ferraris. He was a sitting duck to them. So if that keeps happening, there's every chance that Lando can win races. And if Piastri steps up his game and the 2 Ferraris are in it as well, Max is probably, the best he can hope for is 5th. so it's a big chance of a point swing. It's definitely on. There's no way he'd be driving like this if it wasn't a genuine fear.
Absolutely. All right, Tommy, hit me with your most memorable moment.
My most memorable moment is just the brilliance of Carlos Sainz, and what an amazing drive it was. He obviously lost the lead at the start, which happens in Mexico, has to be said. His move on Max, though, was sensational. Left it, surprised him into the corner, left it late. He was decisive with it, confident with it, and, made the move to get into the lead. And, yeah, he just never really looked in doubt with how he was driving. Had the better of Charles all weekend, and just a really, really good drive from Carlos. And I definitely feel like he's sort of reminiscing a little bit and taking it all in, because he knows he's not going to be in a race-winning car for too much longer. So it was great to see him get a victory, because he's been really good this year. And what a drive!
It was a fantastic drive. Carlos looked brilliant all weekend long. It's not that this was a flash in the pan. It wasn't a surprise when he came out with this decent race pace today. He was on it the entire weekend and had the measure of Charles Leclerc the entire way through. And the thing that was the best of all was literally showing everybody how you get past Max Verstappen. You dive down the inside. You be aggressive. Carlos Sainz is an aggressive driver. He's a brilliant driver. He's measured, but he's also aggressive. And that's what you need to be to win races. And Carlos showed that. Had he not got through, had he sat behind Verstappen for a few more laps or whatever, who knows how the race would have unfolded. But instead, dives down the inside. Yeah, ran a little bit wide, obviously, just by late braking, but got the move done, knew that he had to get through quickly and did. That is the sign of a race winner. Singapore was, again, he has these real big career highlights that we can reflect on and go, yeah, Carlos is an amazing driver. He's not consistently there every single race weekend, but he does have these stellar moments where you go, yeah, he's got it. So, yeah, really, really happy for Carlos. I'm so glad he got that one more win that he was always looking for. He might get more than one should Ferrari continue this run of form. And I'll go into the next question, which was from Chip Pan Dan 1. How is Carlos Sainz out of a top seat? We've said it once, we'll say it 1,000 times. Lewis Hamilton came knocking, and I don't think it's any disrespect to Carlos Sainz and what he brings or has brought to Ferrari. It's just that you move way if Hamilton wants to come and have a play in the Scarlet car. It's as simple as that. I genuinely believe that Carlos will be back in a top seat in no time. I think by 2026, unless Williams and James Vowles have created an absolute masterclass and that car is unbelievable, Carlos will be back in a Red Bull maybe, or whatever that might happen. But he's not going to be in a midfield car for long, I don't think.
No, he's still 30, so he's got time on his side. It's so unfortunate for him because you'd think that he'd have a Red Bull or a Mercedes seat to jump into as well, but it's just the nature of Formula One and how it all shakes out. And unfortunately, it is a case of just bad timing for him, because you look at his performances and there's absolutely no way that he'd even be considered being dropped. It would, if Hamilton hadn't come knocking, there's not even 1% of Ferrari that thinks they would get rid of him. So he's driving so well, and I think I think you're right. I think he will be in a top team again at some point. You've got to think that the way he's driven in his career, he has been unfortunate that he's hopped around in so many teams. I saw a meme which is actually quite crazy to think about now, that if he'd have stayed at McLaren, he could be in a championship fight right now. You never know. But yeah, he'll be in a good seat again soon. I'm sure of it, because we'll see him do a great job at Williams, and I think as soon as a seat at those top teams become available again, he'll be one of those drivers that people will want.
Next question comes in from P1 Patreon member Lightning McQueen Fan 95. Can Ferrari win the Constructors' Championship? Yes. Yes, they can. There is a slight hesitation where I've thought this once before, and then Charles Leclerc got lap 3 out of the next 4 races. So let's be very light with this one. But if Ferrari continue with this trajectory, absolutely. They've got 2 brilliant drivers, probably the best driver lineup currently with that car as well. It's just whether Ferrari just randomly become the 3rd or 4th fastest car in the next 2 races is what I've seen before happen literally this season. So I would say that we're looking good. Brazil, it's going to be a very tight qualifying. Ferrari should be pretty good round there again. But it's so hard to predict this season, but that's what makes it so amazing to cover, is that you can't really say anything with your chest, even who's going to win the driver's title.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can't believe that when we made that video after Monaco, it was, wasn't it? And Ferrari had maximised points, but we were still very much like, well, Verstappen's going to walk the championship. Red Bull are still going to get loads of points. And we were kind of thinking more that they'd win based on the fact of, Perez sort of underperforming. But then as soon as they had that rough patch and McLaren started becoming, unbelievable and looking like they had the best car in the sport, we thought there's absolutely no way that Ferrari are going to be there, and we kind of wrote it off completely. But it's absolutely game on now, and Ferrari have been known to deliver, particularly at the end of the season. It kind of happened last year, didn't it? That they had a great start to the season, bit of a wobble in the end, and then the final few races, they had really good pace again. If they've won the last 2 races, they keep doing that, they'll absolutely win the championship, which is crazy to think, because maybe we've jinxed McLaren after we jinxed Ferrari, and we're like, well, McLaren have absolutely got it locked in, and now I'm not so sure. It's all going to come down to what a season! It's kept us guessing at every single moment.
It's just ridiculous. We've had Red Bull being the fastest, we've had McLaren being fastest, Ferrari and Mercedes. We've had 4 different teams.
4 different teams. Quick. Yeah, one with 7 wins, 5 wins, and 3 wins. Normally, you get ridiculous. A few wins here and there for other teams, but to have 4 teams with that many wins is insane.
Utterly ridiculous. Speaking of the championship still, at Polski Polak _2, if McLaren don't win either championship, is that the biggest bottle in F1? Ooh, I mean, is it the biggest bottle? I don't think it's the biggest ever bottle, but it would be
McLaren
one
2007.
It would be one of the worst seasons, I'd say, for a team to not deliver either title with the car that they've had for the majority of the season. They've not had the fastest car from race 1, but they've had the fastest car, I would very confidently say, for the most of this season compared to the other teams. They've had the lion's share, I would say. So yes, I think it would be devastating for McLaren to not win either championship, but it's very on. That is absolutely a possibility that McLaren don't win the championship in the constructors either. And we said only 2 races ago, done, dusted. McLaren, cheers. Take the rest of the day off. Take the rest of the season off. Then Ferrari were like, actually, we're going to have a 1-2 and a 1-3 in the next 2 races with a 2nd and a 4th in the sprint as well, and collect 1 million points. I'm so in. Like, this is ridiculous. But then McLaren may come back in Brazil and fight back. And I think it's also crucial to say Piastri's had a slight stinker these last couple of weekends. If Oscar gets back to the performances that we have seen of him, McLaren could just settle the boat ever so slightly. Yeah,
I think they need Piastri to kind of get back into the form that he was beforehand, because I think Ferrari's biggest strength, and it's something we praised them at the start of the year, is that they have 2 drivers that deliver almost the maximum every single race for the car, which you can say that sometimes Piastri has an off day. Perez is obviously not performing at all at Red Bull, so that is kind of Ferrari's biggest strength there when it comes to the Constructors' Championship. I just can't believe that if you just said at the start of the season that there'd be 4 races to go, and we'd be in a situation where McLaren could either win both titles or neither. Like, what is this season? And it's not even, and it's between 3 teams, and it's madness. Absolutely madness.
We are basking in the glory of this 2024 season. Next question, P1 Patreon member Lumixion. Is it time for Perez to hold his hands up and bow out of F1? Yes? Maybe bow out of the Red Bull seat. I'd happily see Perez go back to a midfield team. Maybe not RB.
V-Cub.
Have a little fresh start for a couple of years. Regain some of that confidence. Regain his love for Formula One. Show that he's not a completely terrible driver, and it's just whatever happens in Red Bull just doesn't work for him. It's sad. It was really sad to see Perez be literally plumb last at his home race, fighting Lawson, picking up quite a bit of damage on his side pod. It had a terrible qualifying, so it's not as if it was a complete dose of unluckiness. It was just that he put his car in that situation to be fighting the sister team. So it is just getting sad at this point. You know, we got to Mexico. You hoped that Perez would perform in front of his adoring home crowd, and it was a disaster. It wasn't even it's just a Perez weekend. It was a disaster.
Yeah, it couldn't have gone any worse for him. The bar is incredibly low for Perez and his kind of performances this season. So, even if he'd just picked up a P7, P8 like he's kind of been doing, you'd go, and miles off max or whatever, you'd go, it's not ideal, but this is kind of what was expected from him. So the fact that he's, just had, is this the worst? Is this the worst race he's had? What is definitely up there, other than essentially crashing out of the race. It's definitely up there with the worst he's had at Red Bull, and for it to happen at his home race, it's kind of gutting for him. You could tell he was very triggered by Lawson as well. I wonder how much of the fact that Lawson's the one that could potentially be taking his seat made Perez even more sort of annoyed by the situation and how they were racing and their contact and stuff.
I could not believe that Lawson, after that whole debacle with Perez and himself, got past Perez and literally almost climbed out of his cockpit to give him the middle finger down the straight. I was like, I know they were racing, but I felt like it was almost a bit over the top, especially considering you're literally under the same Red Bull guys. Like, bro, I know you want that seat, but you don't need to literally swear at him to get out of it. He's having a bad enough race as it is. Yeah,
it didn't need to be done, really. His move, Lawson's move, where he kind of basically, Perez tried to do a Verstappen on him and Lawson kind of kept his foot in and held on, was great, but weird that he decided to stick his middle finger up, because that's something that, the hot-headedness is something that Yuki's sort of been, is why they kind of don't want to promote Yuki. It's not as extreme, but it's kind of one of those things where it just didn't need to be done. But yeah, it's you do wonder now, while we had this conversation yesterday and I said there's absolutely no chance of Perez getting dropped and they don't care about the title, and while I still agree that I don't think they care about at the top, people don't care about the constructors title and it's all about the driver's title, you could argue that Lawson actually being in the car, or someone else in the car, is it worth the risk of just hoping that they get in the mix and they can at least fight a McLaren or whatever for the drivers' championship, for Max in the drivers' championship? Because, even if they don't care about the constructors, which I don't think they do as much, them taking, even if he can take points or at least race Lando or even be able to hold Lando up before a pit stop, but Perez is so far off the pace that he can't even do that at the moment. So we'll see.
It's a very good point, right? You think of the constructors and that's all the two work together to, but yeah, getting in the mix. We've said this about Oscar in the last few races and how he couldn't be involved in beating Verstappen in certain races, and this was absolutely a race that Piastri should have finished ahead of Verstappen had he had a reasonable weekend. All he needed was a subpar one to probably beat what Verstappen put on the board. But yeah, I agree. I think that Red Bull will be asking the question now of is this worth the switch now that Mexico's done, and whatever the reasoning behind Sergio definitely staying until this point happened. But it's such a done story. Like, my goodness gracious me, can Red Bull please, just for once and for all, just sort this out so we can talk about something else? That'd be lovely. Next question, P1 Patreon member Longo1996. Can Haas find a way to finish in the top 5 of the Constructors' Championship? Do you have the Constructors' Championship there with you, Tommy?
Yes,
I don't know off by heart.
So they are 40 points behind Aston Martin.
No.
With 4 races to go.
No chance. No, that's not happening.
No, it's a big ask. I mean, how many points did they score today? Not a huge amount. Even
7th and 8th?
7th and 8th?
7th and 9th. So 2 and 6, 8. They scored 8 points.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a big ask because of how dominant Formula A is and how hard it is to get any higher than that. I think that would be a miracle. Even still, I wouldn't put it past them with their pace at the moment, and how Aston Martin just seem absolutely nowhere. If they could end up, I mean, if you said at the start of the season that Haas would finish 10, 20 points behind Aston Martin, you'd be like, that is the boldest of boldest predictions you'd have ever had on the podcast.
For sure.
Even more than anything else we've had in the season, based on how Haas had started the season and the talk of them. So, yeah, it's a big ask, but even if they don't, and they're very unlikely to, it's been an unbelievable season from Haas. For them to finish sixth, it is very much looking like they will finish sixth in the championship. It's sensational performance.
Considering they were on the brink of leaving Formula One not that long ago, and now they're finishing sixth in the constructors. It's brilliant, and you're then wondering, did Haas fire the wrong driver? K-Mag finishing in seventh was a brilliant drive from him. Now, before we dive into biggest winner, biggest loser, I feel like we also need to talk about, and we don't have a question for it, but just the general Hamilton versus Russell battle that we saw out on track as well, because that was awesome to watch. They definitely gave themselves just about enough racing room. At times, I thought it was getting slightly heated, but that was brilliant to watch. Russell being in front for most of it, wasn't he? And then eventually Hamilton got him. But I'm glad to see Mercedes actually allowing them to race, and perhaps it's because they know they're not really fighting for much. Although, didn't Toto Wolff say something about the cost cap and Russell obliterating the car again is pretty bad for them?
Great.
So the fact they risked both the cars, fair play for entertainment value.
For the entertainment value. And speaking of entertainment value, I think I said this briefly in our Twitch watch along, and it will go unnoticed, but I think after all the kind of bad kind of publicity and everything, and when Verstappen was dominating Formula One last year, and we're basically saying these rules are terrible, what have they done? I think you have to applaud the fact that Hamilton could stay behind Russell for that long to keep battling him without his engine exploding, because how many years gone by do we see that you essentially, before these new aero regulations, how many times did we see cars get behind someone, and if you didn't make the pass within 2 laps, you basically had to back off by 2 seconds to cool the car down? And especially at a track like Mexico, that's been one of the biggest problems with it anyway, because of the altitude. So it was a great battle. And yeah,
well
again,
done F1.
Well done F1, and well done Mercedes for letting them race.
Love that. Let's go to biggest winner then, driver or team. Carlos is obviously. Haas is, I think, another solid shout. Gasly and Alpine scoring a point. That was pretty good. Perez is up there as well. He won a lot.
0.9 off fastest lap.
Yeah, huge. I think it has to be Carlos Sainz. Yeah, I think for many reasons. Of course, wanting another victory. I think I think he said it was like bittersweet or something, because of course,
it's a shame.
He's winning and he's at the top of his game, but he's then of course going to Williams next year. But yeah, I think Carlos was just sensational throughout the entire weekend. Yeah,
definitely. It's got to be Carlos. Just an amazing performance from start to finish, the whole weekend. Really, really good.
Okay, biggest loser. Perez, it's got to be
easy.
Perez. And that, I mean, it shouldn't be easy considering his run of form to give him biggest loser, but wow.
If you'd said Perez biggest flop in the podcast, it'd be like, how bad does it have to be?
Yeah, and then
there's your answer. Yeah.
Oh dear. It has to be Perez for sure.
Yeah, actually, I can't believe we didn't put Zhou Guan Yu up in biggest winner. Look, P15.
Mate, Sauber, they were very good surprising. We'll get onto that shortly. Okay, yeah, so that we're going to both go for Perez for that one. Yeah. And speaking of predictions and all that sort of stuff, let's dive into them right now. So it's 48-46 to Tommy at this point. Biggest good surprise, I went for Valtteri Bottas. I think he got to Q2, finished 14th, head of show. It's a decent fight. I think overall Bottas was solidly surprising. It's not biggest good surprise. If you're listening to the podcast for the first time, I know we've called it biggest good surprise. It doesn't have to be the best surprise. It's just a good surprise. Tommy?
Yeah, it was definitely looking a bigger good surprise than it was.
Yeah, I feel like he got shafted, and it was actually, the performance was
But
there.
you look at qualifying, I think you can have
he
it.
made Q2 in a literal dustbin.
Q2 for them is just
That's secured
literally anything secures them. Biggest good surprise now.
Anything not last.
I went for Lando Norris, which is. This is a very tough one. I will even admit that myself, because he has come out. If you just said at the start of the weekend that he'd have basically
Gained
closed
10
this much on Max, he'd have said biggest winner. But I was obviously kind of backing him to win, so maybe this one has to go to the comments.
Go to the comments. Okay, biggest good surprise. I feel like they might say no somehow, Tommy. But you want to throw it to the comments? I'm more than happy to.
I don't think it's a million miles off. The biggest
he
good
didn't
surprise.
win there, did he? And he's won.
He's won
two races this year.
All right.
Three races. Okay, it's gone for 0. We don't even need to go to the comments. Okay, biggest flop. He's back. I went for Max Verstappen, biggest flop.
And
my guy said, okay, let's dive bomb.
Watch this.
Let's just get 10-second penalties and another one. Thank you very much. Yeah, that was, especially considering Verstappen's won 4 out of the last 5 Mexico City Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And he finished 1 minute in total behind the leader. I'm just really enjoying this one. This is huge.
Bask in the glory.
What a flopper that was.
It was. What a sentence that was.
Speaking of flopper.
Yeah, and wow, I don't think I could have got any better for a biggest flop. Yuki Tsunoda crashed in quali and then crashed in the race, which we've not actually spoken about the incident at turn 1. I think it was just the nature of a racing incident at turn 1. I don't think
it was just a pinch, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've seen it so many times. These cars are incredibly wide going into kind of very, like a turn 1, and I think that Gasly moved over, but he had every right to, not expecting 2 cars to be there. So
yeah, it was unlucky.
It was unlucky. It's basically unlucky. So yeah, Tsunoda, awful weekend, has to be said.
Oh dear, oh dear. Okay, let's go to pole position. God damn it, the wrong one. I went for Leclerc.
So did I.
And we were wrong.
We were wrong.
And I'm actually fuming with my top 3,
I was
by the
waiting
way.
for this.
I am
was waiting.
absolutely fuming. I got them the wrong way round. In 3rd place, I went for Sainz. No.
I went for Verstappen. No.
In 2nd, I went for Norris. Yes.
I went for Leclerc. No.
And 1st, I went for Leclerc. That would have been such a lovely little wild top 3. I mean, it's
terrible for our championship.
Half a point. What do you mean? You're 2 ahead. Relax.
Well, you would have got all 3.
You were 2 ahead. True.
Yeah. I think that's worked out brilliantly. I went for Norris. No points.
No points. Okay. And we go to our one crazy predictions. Oh, my God. We were so bad with this. I went for Perez, finishes top 6.
Top 6 in the fastest lap.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. Half a point.
That's
Thank
about
you.
as close as he got. And I went for Ocon, best of the rest, which was equally as terrible.
And he started from the pit lane, so you knew that was not going to
happen. Does Ocon have the upgrades? I don't actually know. He was driving like he didn't.
Either. Well, that's crazy. That's a wild slander. What if
it's true because he was a long way off Gasly in qualifying, and then
he was.
So I'd assume, based on how close they normally are,
based on Ocon leaving the team, they're like, you don't actually get the upgrades. Full stop. Sorry.
that is unbelievable from us. That's an extra. So that's 3 for you, 1 for me. We're neck and neck again.
Oh my God! We're
Michael Massey, who?
Tommy, you're supposed to be upset that I've caught you. It's now 51. What? It's 49 all. What are you doing?
Oh, sorry, maths.
Bro just gave me 5. It's 48.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
I scored 3.
I was adding it to your score. Yeah, sorry.
Tommy and maths.
I did well.
Here we go. Okay, so your 3 crazy predictions. Librarian Bert, Lawson outqualifies and finishes ahead of Perez in the main race.
Dub.
That's correct. That's actually correct, which is wild. Farhan says Lewis Hamilton podium after a bad weekend in the USA. Not quite.
Not quite.
And it's Peter Clark, top 5 finish for a Formula B car. No. So 1 of the 3 you got right. that time. And that is it. Before we go, just like to say that we have our UK live show tour tickets available. End of season, live, special. It's going to be freaking awesome. The tickets are available, as I say. Link is all over our socials. It'll be in the description. And Tommy, what are your final thoughts?
What on earth are we going to talk about during those live shows? They're going to have to be 6 hours long.
What a terrible season.
My final thoughts are, if Mexico is that good, bring on Brazil.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's race week.
I hope you've still got that wig.
Yes, I do.
Good stuff.
That's just really weird, isn't it? If they have no idea what you mean by that context. But there is a Brazilian wig that I wore last year when Charles Leclerc went flying into the barriers in the formation lap.
Maybe you won't wear it actually, based on that.
Yeah, that's haunting. So yeah, maybe I've actually just put it away somewhere, never to be found again. But anyway, thank you everybody. We will see you, well, very soon. We'll have drive ratings and everything else that you come to know and love from us very soon, because we're straight into Brazil race week literally in 36 minutes from now. So that's very exciting. So
Indeed.
See you soon. Lots of love.
Goodbye.
Dreams. Keep pushing in the gym and keep repping and keep cleaning. You know, you might be cleaning
those
right now.
penguins.
Keep washing those dishes. Don't forget, you've put the dishwasher on. It's just beeped. Someone take out the plates and the cutlery.